Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Coffee Talk. If you've just joined, Coffee Talks are the short, in-between episodes where we read your user-submitted stories, hang out with friends, talk about witchy pop culture, or chat with you about what's going on in our personal practices.
And if you want to be featured on Coffee Talk, email us at submissions@coffeeandcauldrons.com, or you can send us your submission on our website, coffeeandcauldrons.com. You can send us your tips, your ghost stories, or any kind of funny story you think the community would love to hear. Be sure to let us know if we can share your name, or if you prefer us not to use your name. Your social media usernames are also a great way to get credit.
Yes, and this season we are taking voicemail submissions. Mm-hmm. So if you're somebody who really wants to send us a story, but typing it out is just way too much hassle for you, we get that. Mm-hmm. Shoot us a voicemail at 351-207-0799. It does have a 3-minute limit, but you can just call back if you want to continue the story. That's not a problem.
Yeah. And we also want to mention our class for next month. Next month, we're going to have Teresa read.
Which is so exciting. That is on June 29th.
I'm sure you guys have seen Teresa's name everywhere, especially if you're very into tarots. And that's exactly what she's teaching the class on. So, I mean, come on.
You also might know her as the Tarot Lady, and she's also written like 9 books, I think. It's been several. Don't quote me on the exact amount. But Teresa is incredible. She's incredibly knowledgeable. So if you are somebody who is interested in tarot, this is going to be the class for you. I'm very excited about it. Teresa is one of my idols. So I'm super stoked for this class. As a reminder, though, if you are wanting to join our Patreon, please don't sign up on the last day of the month because you'll be double charged. You get charged at the first when you sign up and the first of every month after that. It is written out for you that way, but I know some people miss it and I don't want anyone to get frustrated. So do join us. We would love to have you. You also get the backlog of every single class before that. Just set yourself up for success and please don't get double charged.
Exactly. And if Patreon is just not your thing, like you don't want subscriptions, we also have our class available on Eventbrite. So definitely keep that in mind if you would prefer to do that.
Yes, we would love to see you there. That being said, this week, Maria and I are going to read some listener-submitted stories. We are so backlogged on these. I realize that some of these go back to 2022. So I'm sorry, we're doing our best to catch up. There's so many of them, which is great. We're very grateful for that. That is not a complaint. But you might be hearing a story that is yours from quite a long time ago that you thought we just forgot about, and we didn't forget about it. We're playing catch up.
Yes. It's been a crazy few years.
It has, which is good. Like, I'm super grateful for it. I know you are too. But it does require some catch up because of that. So we definitely haven't forgotten you.
No. We've just been so in love with the voicemails lately. So
it's been so good. It's been so fun. It's fun hearing your guys' voices because obviously you listen to us talk every single week, but we don't get to hear from you guys. And it's been really fun getting to hear all your voices and hear your stories told in your own voice. So plus nobody's fumbling their own name.
I know. Or just words in general, because, we're very great with words on this podcast and speaking. Like,
beautiful. We're beautiful. We don't have to be literate. If you're in the Discord, you have heard me say that so many times. I'm beautiful. I don't have to know how to read. I'm beautiful. I don't have to be smart.
Or know how to speak. Like, we're just babies. We're just little babies.
We're just a couple of guys, okay? I'm just a girl.
Exactly.
Have you had any experiences you want to talk about this week?
Not really. I've been having a lot of dreams about like my grandmother lately, but it always happens like when I'm going through a super rough time. Like, I don't know. We always had like a really good connection.
nice reminder that she's there and she's watching you.
Exactly. It's very nice, and I definitely appreciate it. And although I don't remember our conversations most of the time in our dreams, but it's still nice to know that she's there.
Just know her presence was there.
Me. Yeah, exactly. But I did want to talk about, I don't think I've mentioned it on the podcast before. I did name it as like my favorite book a couple months back, because our lovely member on our Discord, Erin, likes to ask us like what books we're currently digging.
She does ask us that every month. Yes, she has a cute little like graphic for it. It's so nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Erin. Thank you. You don't have to do that. That's very sweet.
But I've been reading. Well, I did read. I'm already finished with it. I'm about to start the second book. But there's this book by Juno Dawson that is about, like, obviously it's a witchy book. I'm bringing it up right now. Oh, it's Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And it is...
Oh, I've heard good things about that.
It is so good. Especially if you are, like, ally of, like, trans witches and stuff like that. And if you are a queer witch yourself, you might really, really like this book. And honestly, I think even people who... I think everyone in the witch community should read this book. I know it's like fiction and stuff like that, but it also shows like how negative thoughts about like different types of witches in our community is so very, very toxic. And obviously one of the characters is definitely an image of, you know, our most hated billionaire writer of witches and
wizards. Who can't be named.
It was she who can't be named.
See what I did there?
Yeah. But it is so good. Like, I just breezed through that book, like the first book. And honestly, 10 out of 10, like, read it. Definitely read it. It is so good. And I can't wait to read the second book. The covers are really cool for it too, like especially the hardbacks. It's like this bright pink. I've shown you because I was like, hey Robin, you'll really like this cover. But it's just chef's kiss, everything about the book, the cover to the content. So yeah, recommend that book.
Like, this is not witchcraft related, but I'm reading a book that I really like right now. One of our Discord members has her own book club that is separate from the Discord that I got invited to. And we're reading The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And it's like a nonfiction about, I mean, the overall message that's being taught throughout the book, not taught, I don't know, brought home, is about like the abuse of African Americans in the medical system throughout history, and how basically there's been just this massive abuse of just like poor Black people, and how there wasn't like consent for a really long time on like how we received and used just anything from people. So blood samples, cells, organs, etc. And how this one particular woman, her cells were taken from her without her knowledge or consent while she was dying of cervical cancer. And those cells ended up becoming the cells that cured polio, and basically is the backbone of every vaccine we have now. Because her cells were the first to ever be cultured successfully, and therefore with the successful culturing of cells, we were able to make vaccinations because we're able to test things and et cetera, et cetera. And it's been really, really fascinating because the family, so she ended up passing of her illness, but the family like can't even afford health insurance. Meanwhile, their deceased mother's cells that were stolen from her are a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And it's really like, it's one of those things where I think we can all say we definitely know that this stuff occurred and occurs, right? Throughout history, especially. But to have it like faces to the name of something that has been like literally changed the landscape of humankind, right? And having faces to the name, or the faces to the cells and these fluids, et cetera, that save the world. And these people are existing and they've made no compensation. Their mother's name was gotten wrong for years. Like, there are just all these factors in it where it's just like, it makes it so much more real because these are real people. This isn't just like some cells. You know what I mean? I don't know. I really enjoyed this book. It's been very good. And I think it's such a great example why critical race theory is important and an important part of our education. So go read that book if you haven't already. Go do it. I'm enjoying it. I don't know.
No.
It's medical May.
Yeah. You know, that totally reminds me of like, people don't, you know, we hear everything like the Nazis did during World War II and stuff when it came to medical experiments, but
that gets brought up in the book.
Yeah, but people don't realize a lot of the stuff. Stateside.
Well, yeah, that gets brought up in the book. So they talk about all that, and they talk about the fact that basically a lot of the stuff that the Nazi doctors did, there's obviously the egregious examples of like sewing people together to make Siamese twins and stuff. But then a lot of the other stuff that they did was just stuff doctors were doing, like regular civilian doctors here in the United States. And when the Nuremberg trials were happening, there were doctors that were like, what's wrong with what they did? I do that. And it's just one of those things where I don't know that if the Holocaust hadn't happened, if people on a medical level, right? If we today would have the same rights in terms of like consent and our medical information and all that, which is so disgusting. And like, it took a genocide of people for us to have basic medical like rights and consent. What? You know what I mean?
And even then,
this is stuff
we're still like
even then, like things like taking our body parts and taking our cells, samples, etc. per the book. A lot of this was not standardized till like 20, 30, 40 years after the Holocaust. So like, what? It wasn't until people started suing, essentially, white people with like connections and accessibility and the affordability to get a lawyer. It wasn't until those people started suing that we got rights.
Wow.
It's crazy. Wow. Like, if you like they did syphilis trials. They did syphilis trials here in the United States per this book that they just tested on unaware Black men who were dying of other illnesses like cancer. And they were like, well, they're dying anyway, so just gave them syphilis and did like tests on them. How insane is that?
That makes me so angry.
It makes me sick. And then like the mom, Henrietta Lacks, the primary case study is not case study, but interviews is on her family. Cause obviously she passed in the 50s, I believe. And so therefore it's not like they can interview her. So they interview her family and how has this affected you, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll be like publishing their mother's photo, her private medical information, et cetera, and never even mentioning to the family, nevertheless asking them if that's okay. And again, profiting off of, like, they're profiting off of her medical information because it's in a book, profiting off of her photos, etc., and never even asking the family if they're cool with that. Nevertheless, like, the monetary compensation that might come with that. Isn't that wild? And it's wild. One of those things that, like I said, I think we can all say that we definitely were aware that something like this was going on, but now you're, like, putting an actual human being in a human case study of such a grand level to this that it's like, holy shit. Like, and this is one person. It's wild. I've really enjoyed the book. I've been talking Frank's ear off about it. So he's probably like, oh, great. She's talking about it on the podcast now.
I brought up books, Frank. You can blame me.
But I've really enjoyed it. And it's been one of those things that I've recommended it to a bunch of friends because I'm like, you need to read this. This is alarming and eye-opening and very good. So,
yeah. Like,
yeah. And I'm listening to the audiobook, and I guess they made a movie out of it. I have not watched the movie yet. I'm going to watch it after the fact. But Oprah's in the movie, I guess. I did not realize this. I did not realize that there was a movie as well. So I'm looking at the audiobook cover, and Oprah's on the cover, but I thought it was Henrietta Lacks.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, she looks so much like Oprah.
Oh, she's so smart and so pretty.
What can I say? I'm really beautiful. I don't need to have critical thinking skills. And then it dawned on me, and I was like, wow, Robin, you are brain full of worms.
Yeah. Henrietta is actually, like, isn't Oprah, like, a billionaire?
Yeah. But I do think that the Oprah Book Club is who gained, like, popularity on the book and therefore got the story traction, etc. So
sense.
She might be a billionaire and she might be an actor, but still doing good things with it.
Okay.
Let's get into stories now that I've gone on a literal 6-minute tangent about a book that has nothing to do with witchcraft.
No, it's important. Like, as we discussed in, I don't know, a couple of main episodes ago, that, you know, medical stuff is very tied into, like, witchcraft and alchemy and stuff like that. So
it's
like,
really fascinating. Like, I really recommend this book to everyone. I was not sure I was going to like it because it's a biopic essentially. And I was like, well, I'll try. Like, I've joined Kitty's book club. I'm going to give it my best. And this is the first book that we read. And I've been like, this is the most amazing book I've read in, like, probably 2 years.
I'm so glad. And on important subject matter.
Yeah.
So, good.
Yeah. All right. Would you like to read our first story?
Sure. I will. Okay, you ready?
I sure am.
Hello. Hope both of you and listeners are having a great day. My name is Gabriella. You can share my name. And for some context, I live alone in a one-room flat and have a cat named Geisha. When the ghost story took place, I was in a very dark place and could not properly take care of my cat, so I temporarily gave her to my mom. Now, on to the story. It is not as scary as some of the listeners, some of the others are, but here we go. About 2 months ago, I started getting into witchcraft and was very excited and everything. But as I began, I started hearing knocking on my kitchen table and inside of my closet. It wasn't like constant knocking. It was always just one at a time, a loud knock in the middle of the night. I am a very light sleeper and I can wake up to very quiet sounds. And when I started first hearing it, I woke up and was terrified. I told myself that it was just a dream and no one was here. But when I started hearing knocks every night, I knew someone was here. At one point, I was so fed up with them that I woke up to the knocking sound and started yelling at whoever was knocking to stop because they were pissing me off. This sounds very familiar. And went back to sleep after. I heard it a couple nights later, and then it was finally, when I was finally in the right state of mind and did like 5,000 house protection spells and got my cat back. I have not heard anyone knocking ever since. And looking back, it is really funny how I got the courage to yell at some entity, or maybe it was just in my mind. I really do not know. Laughing emojis. Oh no, that sounds very familiar. And my heart goes out to anyone who keeps being woken up by spirits. It's very rude, and it's just not the time to make yourself known. Like, not the time. Yeah. I know it's easier to get a hold of us, but leave us alone.
I'm trying to sleep. Like, honestly, go do some lipstick or some blood or some fog on the mirror. Like, truly, I would find that to be less offensive or scary than knocking in the middle of the night.
Yeah. That's...
Goodness.
No. know. But I'm glad it's
All right,
stopped.
you ready for the... Yeah, I'm glad too. Even if you had to be rude.
It's called boundaries. Sometimes you have to be rude.
I've said it once, okay? Now you're asking me to say it again. And a third time, I will be firm, direct, and possibly rude.
Exactly.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yep, let's hear it.
All right, so this next one comes from somebody on social media who I'm going to try to pronounce your username, but it's Sylverus, Sylverus. And the story goes, this happened to me about a year ago. It was during the fall, and I had been freezing all week. However, that night it was nice and warm, like a warm summer night, which doesn't usually happen in the fall of Pennsylvania. It also had been a full moon, so me, being newer to my practice, said, fuck it, I'm gonna go outside and dance under the moonlight and frolic in my front yard. That's amazing. New or not, that's so good.
That sounds amazing.
Which, if anybody hasn't done it, is a 10 out of 10. Recommend. So fun. Anyway, as I was dancing and laughing and going full on woo-woo, I all of a sudden got a terrible feeling, and I looked across the street into the woods across from my house, and I didn't see anything. But I got this overwhelming sense of fear and dread and got the fuck inside energy I've ever had in my life. I ran inside my house as fast as I could, and my front door and my bedroom window faced those woods. So I drew a sigil on my front door and stated out loud that nothing could get in, yada yada, and then ran upstairs and did the exact same thing. And I shut my window, wrote a sigil on it, spread some protection powder, closed my curtain, and as I was closing the curtain, I heard something bang on the window from the outside. No, you did not. Stop. That is so scary. Needless to say, I was freaked the fuck out, and I just laid in bed and burned herbs and some candles for protection until I fell asleep. Next morning, I tried closing the curtain again, how I had done it at night about 100 times to try and recreate the sound, but I could not. There was nothing hard on the curtain that could have made that sound, and I swore it came from the outside. I haven't had an experience like that again, and the window curtain has never made that sound again, but I'm very aware of the woods now.
See, I always wonder if these stories, it's just like a pissed off, like, spirit, and not like an earth spirit, you know? Like, just like, you built a house here, I'm angry, and, you know, there's a lot
think of it like the Karen of the woods who, like, they're having a bad day because of something somebody else did, and they just need to take it out on somebody. You know?
Yeah, honestly.
Plus, there's also like traveling spirits, the wandering dead, etc.
Yeah. Would you? I personally would. Like, if I got this feeling in the wood, like, let's just say that it doesn't feel like a human entity, it feels like something else. I would literally just go to the woods and I would leave a peaceful offering, but still have protection.
Of course you would. And stuff. You also were like, I'm going to go hiking and camping in the Appalachian Mountains. You have something fundamentally wrong with your brain.
Look, so, as I said, if I become a spirit of the
your brain does not actually function properly, so of course you would.
What a way to go. I get to scare people for the rest of eternity. I mean, fun. Like, great. And I can help, like, people who are
there's
lost.
Something wrong with her up here.
Like,
oh my gosh.
And be in nature for, like, the rest of, like, my existence. Hopefully it's not going to get ruined as the years go by. It probably will, but... Which is probably why whatever, like, woodland spirit is, like, freaking out might be a little pissed off that their world is changing, you know?
Yeah.
You never know.
Now, I will say, I think that was the only time that we had for stories, because I accidentally captivated way too much of this podcast with talking about Henrietta Lacks. So sorry. Promise I won't do that next time. I promise I will shut the fuck up. Just kidding, I won't. You can't shut me up. Please don't send me anonymous messages telling me to be quiet.
This is what coffee talks are for. They were just chit-chatting. We're just chit-chatting and reading stories. And maybe someone learned something.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe you guys go out and get that book because it's actually very good and I do really recommend it and I think it's great. So
yes. And if you're interested in queer activism in our community, definitely pick up Her Majesty's Royal Coven because very good. 10 out of 10. And tell me how you like it.
Oh yeah, and if you read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, tell me that if you like it too. If you don't like it, don't tell me. I don't care. You're wrong. So, well, that being said, thank you all so much for joining us this week for Coffee Talk. We hope to see you next week for our regular episode. You can check out our website for links to our submission forms or shoot us an email at submissions@coffeeandcauldrons.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 351-207-0799. Tell us your ghost stories, your witchy stories, your tips, or topics that you think that the community would love to hear.
And as always, if you enjoy Coffee and Cauldrons, please take a moment to review us on whatever you're listening on. Or if you want to support us directly, consider joining us on Patreon, where we share articles, special Part 2 exclusive episodes, have a Spell of the Month box, and a Discord full of events. Like, so full of events. Like,
so full of events.
Yeah. So
full of events.
So come join us. We would love to see your faces. And, get to know you.
Hang out.
Yeah.
It's a pretty chatty place. We'd love to have you hang with us.
But yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.